Nissan has been on a complete tear as of late. I mean, it was about 3 or 4 days in a row last week where it was the Pro 4XR co-developed with Roush of all companies, which is typically a Ford, I guess, gussy uppier. They absolutely crushed the pricing of the new Nissan Leaf, over 300 miles of range, under $30,000. No tax credit needed for that vehicle to be successful, I don't think. We also got the huge reveal out of the dealer meetings in Las Vegas. Okay, let's start with those. The confirmation that the Xterra body-on-frame SUV was coming back in 2028 with V6 and range extender powertrains. We had confirmation that Infiniti would be getting their own flavor of the Xterra. We have confirmation that the next-gen Pathfinder will be going body-on-frame as well. So you're going to have 3 body-on-frame SUVs, Xterra, Pathfinder, and Armada from Nissan. I don't know how they're going to figure out the pricing on that, but that's their choice, and I'm happy to see more body-on-frame SUVs, more V6s, and some hybrid options there as well. And Nissan's luxury division, Infiniti, confirmed that the Skyline's coming back as a new Q50 sedan with circular taillights. Raise your hand if you're a sucker for those, as well as a manual transmission twin turbo V6 400 plus horsepower. Well, we're here to cover some more news for Nissan today. Some good, mostly maybe a little bit sad. So if you guys have been enjoying the Nissan content, I think many of us just like rooting for the underdog. Nissan is now out of the top 10 global automakers for the first time in well over a decade, maybe about 2 decades at this point. We'll dive more into it. If you guys want Nissan to hit that, springboard to bounce back after just being a joke or I would say a terribly ran company for so long, now we have some fresh blood as CEO. Ivan Espinosa, their new CEO from Mexico, knows what American customers want. America is Nissan's biggest market, and they can't afford to fumble the ball anymore. So it is exciting, but we have some growing pains that we're going to have to slog through. Let's start with some sad news first. It's finally happened. The GTR, after 18 years, has finally been discontinued because of emissions regulations, sound laws, all these stupid laws that keep one of the greatest cars ever made out of production. Now, you could say, Kirk, it's Nissan's fault that they didn't, update the GTR. Well, yes and no. I just drove one, I feels like just 2 springs ago, and before it was discontinued. And I absolutely loved it. It felt extremely visceral. It felt special. It was an amazing experience to be able to review the Skyline. I shouldn't say Skyline. What used to be called a Skyline GTR, but just the R35 GTR. It was amazing. And there's no successor. Well, or is there? The last of the cars in midnight purple rolled off the Nissan Tochigi plant assembly line this week, bound for a customer in Japan. Their new CEO says, while we do not have a precise plan finalized today, the GTR will evolve and reemerge in the future. It will come back. Now, Nissan said, hey, the future of the GTR, it's going to be fully electric. Is that still the case? Well, look at what's going on in Europe right now, and I need to talk about this. In Europe, the automakers in Europe, which are shrinking, I just saw a headline that Volkswagen Auto Group laid off like 52,000 people or something like that in the last year. It's just a mind-blowing stat. But the European automakers are saying, hey, we can't do this fully electric future in the timeline that you have given us, mainly due to them not having any infrastructure for batteries whatsoever. All the batteries come out of mainly China, some in South Korea, but mainly China, and they cannot compete with the Chinese automakers if they are being forced to be EV-only car makers. They're going to have to figure something out, strike a deal. In September, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is going to have to modify these rules. But let's go back to Japan. Because those goalposts are going to be modified immensely for the European automakers, the GTR may not be fully electric. It might evolve into something else. And, you know, the GTR, Europe is not its primary sales volume. It's Japan and the United States, I would say. It's been out since 2007. They've sold over 48,000 over the 18 years. Okay. Rest in peace, GTR. It needs to come back as soon as possible to just bring fire to Nissan's comeback. Nissan's comeback, I think, is real. Now we're going from a sad thing, rest in peace GTR, to a happy thing. This interview with Christian Munier, their North American president, I believe, North America chairperson. In this interview with Automotive News, he said that there is a Nismo Z manual in the works. Thank God. I did not enjoy the Nismo Z automatic. It's just like, yeah, it's fast, but it didn't feel special. I would definitely pick a Z Performance manual over a Nismo automatic and save a lot of money, but also enjoy that manual connection with the Z. The Fairlady Z is named after this 1964 movie, and I think it's a musical as well. Okay, you have Audrey Hepburn. That's how little I know of it. I've never seen this movie. Obviously, it's a bit before my time, but I'm familiar with it, as it is a pop culture icon still to this day to some degree. And so if you have a partner, a dancing partner, what better way to have a manual transmission? It's not quite as intimate without the manual transmission. And we're talking Fairlady Z. We want that connection, if you know what I mean. All right, and it is coming with the Nismo finally. And now Christian Munier also talked about how fleet sales are down and retail sales are up. All right, but because fleet sales have fallen off a cliff for Nissan, fleet sales is not profitable. I've made videos in the previous years talking about how Nissan's death spiral of fleet cars, it only ends to death of a company because it destroys residual sales value when you're offloading a ton of cars to fleet at a low price. And it also really brings down the value on the new car retail end and even resale values on the retail end. So you got to get rid of fleet or manage fleet to about maybe 10%. Any more than that, you're bleeding out over time. So they have dropped down due to them reducing fleet. They have dropped down 6% on the year to 1.61 million vehicles, the lowest in 16 years. That's just on the first half so far, or should I say January to June. Suzuki has even passed them. No surprise, BYD and Geely out of China, but Suzuki, which is not even sold in the United States anymore, unfortunately. We missed the Samurai and the Jimny, of course. But you can still buy a Hayabusa. You can still get some good motorcycles from the SV650, shout out, you know, the GSXRs, the Gixxers. Why is Suzuki growing so much? It's the Indian market. Suzuki in India is like the Toyota in Japan. Like, they absolutely have huge draw in India. And Suzuki just announced, I think it's like an $8 billion investment into India in the past couple of days. So Suzuki's on a tear down there. They remind us in this article that the Leaf is coming out later this year. I will be driving it soon. Stay tuned for that. Records began in 2004 that Nissan has not been in the top 10 bestsellers globally. So they're at their lowest point in relevancy in at least 2 decades. Let that sink in. Maybe longer. April to June quarter this year, Nissan lost 115 plus billion Japanese yen, over $785 million in just one quarter. If you look at the quarter the year before, April to June, they were actually in a profit of 28.5 billion yen. It is the company's 4th consecutive quarter in the red. And we know that their sales are okay here in the United States, I would say, especially the retail sales. But if you go to China, Nissan's biggest market. Now, I said that North America was Nissan's most important market. That is going forward. China, it might not be a long-term thing. And it's right now, it's crushing them. It's crushing the Japanese automakers, Toyota and maybe Mazda, but Toyota for sure is the only one doing well in China from the Japanese automakers. And I wouldn't say they're exactly thriving due to the competition there. All right, so back to Nissan in China, their sales fell 18% to 270,000 vehicles. You know, luckily there is a new vehicle coming out. Yes, they have the new N7 EV. We won't get that. But the Sylphy over there, which is our Sentra, is getting redesigned. So hopefully they have some good e-power, maybe some range extenders on that Sylphy to boost some sales. But they were down 60%. Nissan is down 60% from their peak in 2018. How fast have things have changed in China? It is insane. Their N7 EV starts at just under $17,000, and they're actually selling the seat for the N7 as a computer chair. If you want to look at the N7, the front end is very much like the new Leaf coming out, but in sedan form. This thing looks badass. It looks very roomy, and it's less than $17,000, right? Like, this is a more sophisticated, more advanced EV, and from the side, it looks a lot like the Sony Honda Mobility Afeela model. I think you guys might agree with that, but the front is definitely more interesting looking than the Afeela model. But anyways, the Afeela costs $100,000, and this sedan costs $17,000 in China. Nikkei Asia reminds us that Nissan does not have a strong lineup of hybrids in the United States or North America. And Nissan actually didn't do well, apparently, before the U.S. tariffs on autos started. This would have been April 2nd, right? I believe that's when the tariffs started. The company sought to clamp down on the use of sales incentives. Yikes. But if you don't use as many incentives, you seemingly are more profitable. Here's the thing. I drive by my Nissan dealer every single day. I need to focus more. I forget that I drive by them. And I saw a ton of Muranos sitting there. I just reviewed the Murano. It's way too expensive of a car. It looks okay. It's nice on the inside. It's really quiet, but the engine and the transmission are not good on it for the class and caliber vehicle. All right, and there's no hybrid either. So it's just in the fuel economy as a result, it's not good. And so I saw a bunch sitting on the lot. So I went online and there were over 40, I think it was like 45, something like that, sitting around on my local Nissan lot. And it's just not looking good. And it just came out. When I reevaluated it, because I reviewed it twice this year, when I reevaluated it, I see it only as a fire sale sort of vehicle. In Japan, Nissan's home market, sales have dropped 10,000 units to 220,000 units. The lowest level since data started coming in on this sort of thing since 1993. Consumers in Japan have lost their trust in the company. We know that the Chinese autos, BYD and Geely, they're in the top 10. I think number 7 and number 8 right now, globally in terms of total sales. But they talk about how Suzuki has outsold Nissan in the first half this year by 20,000 units. Now, Nissan has also slipped up from its 9th place ranking because of the Chinese automakers. But it is the first time since 2004 that Suzuki has outpaced Nissan. 5 years ago, Nissan sold upwards of 800,000 more units than Suzuki. And now Suzuki's up by 20,000 at the halfway point. And it looks like that the Chinese market is tapped. It's not going to grow anymore. And as a result, they're seeing a lot of exports right out of China because the domestic market there can't take any more sales. And so it's just a race to the bottom over there. Nissan they should just pull out. I think all the Japanese automakers, other than Toyota, should just get the heck out of Dodge. Leave China. You don't have a shot there. That's just my 2 cents. The thing is, the Japanese automakers are not that competitive there, but they have more respect globally than most of the Chinese automakers. And so what's happening is these Japanese automakers like Honda, Mazda, Nissan, they're co-developing their EVs with EV manufacturers over there. in China, and then they're exporting them to Europe. And we already talked about Europe's struggles, right? So the Japanese are really just using China to build cheap EVs and export them at this point. All right, because they're not succeeding in that Chinese market. The US market's kind of at this teeter-totter point. How much are the tariffs going to affect prices? If the prices keep going up, I mean, the American consumer is already stretched at this point. We can't afford much more. Interest rates are too high still. Borrowing money is very expensive, and a lot of these manufacturers are taking a huge hit by offering 0% financing like Nissan on the Pathfinder and the Rogue, for example. Lastly, Mercedes. Their pension trust is selling almost 4% stake in Nissan, and that doesn't look good for Nissan's stock market prices. So $346 million is being sold, and we see a 24% decline in Nissan's share price this year. Nissan's closest partner, I know I'm trying to widen this down, but Nissan's closest partner, Mitsubishi, slashes profit forecasts as well as tariffs are really hurting them. Remember, Mitsubishi makes 0 cars in the United States. All of them that come into the United States are from Japan. So I'm going to shut down. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more automotive news here on the channel. And Nissan, you know, I've been hyping them because they had some really cool announcements lately, but you got to look underneath the surface. The company's still massively struggling with profitability, and that won't change until they have good product. The product's coming. They're just going to keep bleeding out for a while until that product comes. But yeah, I'll see you guys. Have a great day. Thank you for watching, and peace out.